What happens when a shady wrestling promotion dies and then 10 years later is brought back just to scam everyone all over again? One Pro Wrestling ran their first ever show live from the Doncaster Dome on the 1st of October 2005, and it was the first chapter of a very turbulent tale. 1PW, A Cruel Twist of Fate, their first ever show, featured names such as Chris Sabin, Jerry Lynn, The Blue Meanie, Al Snow, D'Lo Brown, Corey Graves, Austin Aries, Raven, The Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, Abyss, AJ Styles, and more. 1PW were bringing American talent to British soil, and as a result, their shows were stacked. They ran their next set of shows in January of 2006, a two-tag show that featured matches like Abyss vs Sabu, Samoa Joe vs Masato Tanaka, AJ Styles vs Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Lynn vs Petey Williams, and the Unbreakable Triple Threat, but with Charlie Haas also in there. 1PW were not slowing down with the amount of fly-ins and the amount of good talent they were booking. They were essentially just TNA, but on British soil. They had all the foreign talents that they'd fly over, and they mixed them in with a roster of numerous local and British talents. And 1PW would continue in stride in 2006. They ran about a dozen shows in 2006, and kept up with the big names coming in. Names that wrestled and appeared for 1PW in 2006 that I haven't even mentioned yet include Bryan Danielson, Jimmy Snuka, Nigel McGuinness, and Bret Hart. Yes, that's right, one of the biggest names ever in wrestling, who was long retired, was flown in by 1PW to give a 5-minute speech. And of course Teddy Hart made an appearance for them too, because of course he did. It's the mid-2000s, it's an indie show in the mid-2000s, of course Teddy Hart is on it. They also crowned their inaugural champions that year, with Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm winning the tag titles, Pac winning the openweight title, and Abyss winning the world title. However, booking all these names and spending all this money to fly out talent and pay for their appearance was always going to catch up to them, and unsurprisingly, with the amount that 1PW were flying people in, it came back to bite their ass very quickly. And on January 5th, 2007, at approximately 1:26 PM, 1PW posted a statement on their website announcing they had gone into liquidation. The statement reads as following: "It is with the deepest regret and sadness that 1PW Promotions Limited announces today that the company has ceased trading, effective today, and has entered into liquidation. The cease of trading is effective immediately, and thus all future dates, including the January 13th No Turning Back show, are sadly cancelled. On behalf of 1PW Promotions Limited, I want to extend our heartfelt apology to anyone inconvenienced or disappointed by the cancellation of upcoming shows." They advertise where you can get refunds from, and 1PW chairman Stephen Gortley also left a personal statement in the note, saying that he was prepared for the backlash and to not listen to what the dirt sheets are going to be saying about this. Interesting. Stephen Gortley, by the way, is a man who you will hear a lot more about in the next part of this video. 1PW would actually run a show shortly after this, a farewell show titled 1PW Will Not Die, a show that featured a much less stacked card and was very showing of the money they had lost. 1PW went out on a whimper. Or did they? Because just 3 months later, 1PW was back with another show titled 1PW Resurrection, and welcome to the trend of 1PW announcing that they were dead and then just coming back. This is the first of many. 1PW returned to running shows and flying in talents from the States, which where the money came from to do that, who even knows, but you had the likes of El Generico coming onto the show to defend the PWG world title. How 1PW were getting stuff like this booked is still beyond me. In 2008 though, we would see what would be the first in many changes in ownership when Stephen Gortley bailed out of the company in 2008, and it was taken over by 1PW wrestler Dragon Asu, as well as other wrestlers on the roster. And also that year in 2008, a man named Danny Rod would become owner, and then in 2009 he would become the sole owner of the company. And this would usher in an entirely new era for 1PW. With the ownership of 1PW now in the hands of Danny Rod, 1PW went back to doing 1PW things, booking talents from the States and flying people in with money which nobody knows where they got it from. And it was only about a year and a half before 1PW would get another death announcement. In August of 2010, another statement was posted by 1PW. They announced they had to cancel all their upcoming shows due to outstanding debts from a show they ran in Liverpool, with talent not getting paid. However, at the very end of the statement, Danny says it's not the end of 1PW, it's just see you down the road. Following this, fans of 1PW would start a campaign to get new investors behind the company, and well, it seemingly worked, because 3 months later, the 1PW website was updated to say, personally from Danny Rod, 1PW is back and soon to be better than ever. Keep checking for updates. 1PW had been bailed out again. And 1PW seemingly had big plans under these new investors, as in February of 2011 it was announced that Shawn Michaels would be coming to 1PW to appear for them in October of 2011 and do a UK tour. This was huge. Shawn Michaels had retired less than just a year prior and was still a huge name, and a name that a lot of people wanted to see. It was announced that the tour Shawn Michaels will be doing in the UK would consist of him appearing at 1PW shows in Doncaster, as well as doing a meet and greet in Oxford. 1PW also announced a tour of the Middle East and a trip to Dubai, of all places. So seemingly a lot of money was being pumped into 1PW, but once again, this is 1PW, and unfortunately, nothing ever lasts in 1PW. On July 2nd of 2011, a post was made to the UK fan forums that reads as followed. Just seen on Facebook, Mark Sloan's meet and greet in Oxford in October with HBK has been cancelled. I wonder what implications this could have for 1PW. Your first question based on this post is probably, who is Mark Sloan? Mark Sloan is a wrestling promoter based in the UK, and this post also mentions the meet and greet in Oxford, which is something I mentioned before was taking place with Shawn Michaels. Essentially, Mark Sloan was the promoter behind the meet and greet in Oxford, which was a completely separate thing to his 1PW appearances. Mark Sloan though would actually respond to this post saying that he had received information that caused them to pull the appearance of Shawn Michaels, and that every single ticket had been refunded for the meet and greet. Interestingly though, he also went on to say, we felt it was best for the people who purchased tickets to have their money returned, and for us to stop advertising the fact he would be in the UK on that date. Almost implying that, well, Shawn Michaels wasn't gonna be in the UK on that date. Despite this though, 1PW continued to advertise that Shawn Michaels would be appearing for them. 6 days later, WrestleZone posted an article that showed an email statement from Shawn Michaels' agents, and while the original article with the email does not exist anymore due to Shawn Michaels' agents asking to take it down, I'm guessing that this statement was something to do with the fact that this appearance wasn't happening. However, following the posting of that article, WrestleZone were contacted to say that 1PW and Shawn Michaels were still negotiating. However, after this, 1PW simply just went silent, and they closed their doors once again, leaving the fans fuming as they didn't have a Shawn Michaels meet and greet, nor did they have refunds. However, after weeks of silence, Danny Rod finally came out in August of 2011 to release a statement. In his statement, Danny claims to be a victim of a scam and that the fall has been placed on him for HBK ultimately not making it to the UK, saying that he has taken the heat away from the main culprit. But regardless of who was to blame, fans were left in the dark, Shawn Michaels never came, fans never got refunds, and 1PW was finished. Or was it because somehow 11 years later, 1PW returned with its original ownership?
Remember when the dream became reality? When a monster was unleashed? When kings captured their crowns?
1PW announced a new twist of fate would be taking place October 1st, 2022 from the Doncaster Dome on Fight TV, and on the poster featured big names like Mickie James, Ruby Soho, and Rob Van Dam. In case you're wondering why it was called a new twist of fate, it's because the first ever 1PW show was called A Cruel Twist of Fate, which I learned recently it was called that because Matt Hardy was meant to be on that show, but then he wasn't in the end, and 1PW just kept the name because that's the most 1PW thing of all time. 1PW managing director Stephen Gauntly stated that this was the perfect time to bring 1PW back, and that he's always had a passion for what 1PW was able to achieve many years ago. But pause. Managing director Stephen Gauntly. Stephen Gauntly, I recognize that name. In fact, Stephen Gauntly is a name I mentioned in my last video, as he was the original founder and owner of 1PW. He owned 1PW from 2005 until 2008, and somehow he's bringing the company back 14 years later. But I can tell you that in 14 years, Gauntly hadn't gone anywhere. Post-initial 1PW death, it's known that Stephen Gauntly got involved in the arcade business, or the miniature arcade business, I don't really know what to call it. But searching for Stephen Gauntly Arcade on Google can find you this mention of Stephen Gauntly in 2011, 3 years after he left 1PW. It's an article on a site called retrothing.com talking about a business called Retro Heart, and they're a business that seemingly make miniature arcade game cabinets, and as you can guess, this business is owned by Stephen Gauntly. And hey, scrolling at these pictures, hey, it all seems pretty cool, seems all well and good until you scroll down to the comments on this article. Hi, I'm posting here to tell everyone to avoid Retro Heart like the plague. This guy Stephen G ships poor quality, faulty, and incomplete items, very different from the ones advertised in the images. He's also a natural born liar that will have excuses ready, will promise replacements and refunds, and will keep you waiting with lies for weeks before he actually stops replying to emails and disappears. Sounds kinda familiar, doesn't it? He goes on to say that essentially he ordered an item from Retro Heart, it came through and it was poor quality, so he asked for a replacement before eventually asking for a refund when that couldn't be provided, and he was just straight up ghosted by Stephen after false promises of a refund coming. Another comment right below it reads, Stephen Gauntly, who allegedly produces these miniatures, accepted $300 of my money and never sent me anything. It's been 2.5 months. He no longer replies to my emails. So it seemed as though Stephen Gauntly had taken his scamming ways to the miniature arcade scene as well. But believe it or not, Stephen Gauntly actually made a short-lived return to wrestling promotion even before the revived 1PW. As it was announced on February 5th, 2013 that Pro Wrestling Republic would be running a show at the Lead Mill in Sheffield. This was Pro Wrestling Republic's first ever show, and when it was revealed that the owner was Stephen Gauntly, people had their hesitations. And well, some didn't. Some trusted this guy still for whatever reason, and they were excited for a show that was to feature the likes of Steve Corino, Chris Travis, Hijo del Rey Mysterio, and many more. And if you haven't guessed already, this show of course never took place. The show was cancelled just weeks before, with talent not being paid and fans not getting refunds once again. So yeah, with all that being said, this is the guy we are trusting to bring back 1PW. I wonder how this is gonna go. 1PW A New Twist of Fate took place on the 1st of October 2022 in the Doncaster Dome to an attendance of 1,533, and it featured names such as Ace Austin, Alexander Hamilstone, Colt Cabana, Mickie James, Christopher Daniels, Rob Van Dam, and Jamie Hayter. It was a stacked card and seemingly things went pretty smooth. Fair enough. Their next show, No Turning Back, took place on the 18th of February. It featured names like The Rascals, Ruby Soho, Taya Valkyrie, Rhino, John Morrison, and Will Ospreay. Then 2 months later, All or Nothing took place. This featured a tournament to crown a new 1PW World Heavyweight Champion, featuring people like Will Ospreay, Bobby Fish, Mark Haskins, Lance Archer, all in the tournament, with Will Ospreay being crowned the winner. We also saw Lizzie Evo win the 1PW Women's World title, Robbie X win the 1PW Openweight title, and Leon Slater and Man Like Doris win the 1PW Tag Team titles. All in all, it was actually looking pretty okay for 1PW. All things considered, all 3 shows had gone off without a hitch. There was no talks of anything going badly. That was until the build up to their June 10th, 2023 show Devil's Due, when Matt Cardona took to Twitter to complain that 1PW had not yet paid him for his upcoming appearance for them. In a now deleted tweet, Matt Cardona wrote, "Unless I get my payment that I was promised before this match was advertised today, this match isn't happening. Sorry fans," in response to a 1PW post promoting his match at the show. However, Matt Cardona would actually follow up on this a few hours later saying, "Update, I got my money from One Pro Wrestling. It's a shame I had to make a public tweet to get it, but it is what it is. I can't wait to make my return to the UK. I'm really looking forward to Cardona versus Will Ospreay. It's going to be an instant classic, and Steph DeLander will now be there too." So, water under the bridge it seemed. It was all good in the end. Devil's Due took place as scheduled, Matt Cardona had his matches scheduled, and again, seemingly, the show went off without a hitch. That was until 1PW went silent following the show, and when 1PW goes silent like that, you know that something is going down within the company. And it's not a good thing. And eventually news had hit that 1PW had gone bankrupt and were looking for investors. 1PW would finally respond to everything on their Facebook on the 8th of July, saying it has been a very challenging few weeks for the company. There have been changes of shareholders and changes of directorship and logistical challenges. Keeping it as vague as possible, really. Then a week later, a statement was posted saying that Stephen Gauntly was now 100% owner of 1PW, and that their October 28th show that was still up in the air, that fans didn't know whether it was still happening or not, is apparently still going ahead. Know Your Enemy scheduled for October 28th, and it had the likes of Matt Cardona, James Storm, Steph DeLander, and various UK talent and imports coming for the show. However, I don't think you'd be surprised to know that as of now, that event is not happening. In fact, there are no 1PW shows scheduled in the future. They've all been cancelled. So this is something I don't know if I went over in my last video or not, I can't remember, but a statement that Stephen Gauntly, the owner of 1PW and original founder, left following the reports of talent not being paid was he left this notes at statement on Twitter reading, "It has been rumoured on this app that people are owed money by 1PW. To clarify, one wrestler is on a payment plan and every other wrestler, crew member and staff member has been paid for their work with us. Any other inference is completely untrue and a complete lie. 1PW's relaunch was with 2 promoters and now is with 1. Any wrestlers wishing to work for our former co-promoter and not us, we wish well and hope they flourish in those surroundings. Thanks, Stephen Gauntly." This at the time it was posted was already and quickly debunked as a lie, with people coming out and saying, "No, hey, you haven't paid us, you are just lying to us right now." And also, a wrestler is on a payment plan? We're paying wrestlers on Klarna now? My goodness. If you have to pay a wrestler on a payment plan, then you shouldn't be running a show. And yeah, like I said, following this statement, they strided on and they were looking to put on their next show, Know Your Enemy. But just this last week, it was discovered that Stephen Gauntly had resigned from 1PW, and this was not announced publicly or anything like that. 1PW hadn't come out and said Stephen Gauntly's leaving, or Stephen Gauntly had came out and said, "Hey, I'm resigning from 1PW. No, it was discovered by someone else looking on his government page. Obviously, it's all public record, so it was found out through that way and posted to social media. And after that, the floodgates had opened as wrestlers and talent scheduled to be on the upcoming 1PW shows started to talk and tell us what was going on, and it became apparent that Stephen Gauntly was fleeing the scene and abandoning ship. He did not have the facilities to run the show. Wrestlers and crew on the show started to tweet about the fact that they were owed money for this show and starting to speak about Stephen Gauntly, including Matt Cardona, who confirms the upcoming show Know Your Enemy wasn't taking place by tweeting, "Attention promoters who want the indie god in 2023. This One Pro Wrestling show isn't happening and the promoter Stephen Gauntly didn't have the balls to tell me himself or respond to my messages. I should have learnt my lesson after I had to tweet to get paid my deposit for the last show, lol. Sorry to the UK fans who were planning on seeing me. And then announcer Joe Dombrowski, who was scheduled to be on the show, tweeted out a thread of his experiences with 1PW on the lead up to this show. And he exposed Stephen Gauntly for, of course, lying about paying everyone, with multiple are owed a total of 1,000, plus owes many fans merch and refunds, embezzled 1PW income to his personal account while lying to rest of management, tried to fraudulently sell 10% of 1PW stock by claiming assets he didn't own, manipulated wrestlers on his own roster to facilitate loans from those close to them not in wrestling, only a small percent was paid back, owes someone formerly close to him £10,000 used to restart 1PW, lied to those waiting on June money that he wasn't paying October deposits, claims the only reason he was resigning from the company was because he fell down the stairs, has blocked countless people who have been pursuing their money, has resigned as a director without appointing a replacement. Also illegal. I'll leave the link to this thread in the description. It has all the images on there. It's a pretty crazy thread. Some other stuff that's also gone down since this thread was posted is 1PW have completely wiped themselves off of social media, with their Facebook page being deleted and now also their Twitter page being deleted. I didn't actually realize it had been deleted because they had blocked me, so I couldn't actually search for them anyway. However, one account they do still have is an Instagram account, and they posted a statement on their Instagram account. They finally posted a statement themselves, and it reads, "With regret, 1PW Limited has ceased trading and all future events are cancelled. We would advise customers seeking ticket refunds to discuss the matter with their card issuer or bank. The board of directors are currently seeking professional advice." And yeah, reading that back, I don't know about you, but that statement is just a massive slap on the face to all the people who were looking for refunds on the show and are still awaiting payment. And the "we would advise customers seeking ticket refunds to discuss the matter with their card issuer or bank." That's basically them just saying, hey, we're not going to refund you, sort it out yourselves. Like, again, just a complete slap in the face. And I guarantee you there'll be fans here that were going to this show or bought tickets to meet and greets or any future 1PW show, merchandise, anything from 1PW, that are never going to see that money again now because Stephen Gauntly has fled the scene. Who are we even to believe there is a board of directors who are currently seeking professional advice? The venue for the upcoming show, Know Your Enemy, the Doncaster Dome, posted that they are looking into the issues raised around the 1PW event, so have decided to pause ticket sales for the time being. We will provide an update to customers as soon as we have more information, so hopefully the Doncaster Dome are working to hopefully and potentially help provide some refunds for this show. So it seems as though this is finally the end of the 1PW saga. I have now made 3 videos about One Pro Wrestling and all the times they have scammed their fans. It has been nearly 17 years, or probably just over 17 years, of this company scamming their fans. They left and they came back to do it all over again. And in 5 years' time, we'll probably see them come back and attempt to do it again, and for some reason, people will fall for it again. Regardless, I do hope all the talent and crew on the shows do get paid the money they're owed. I unfortunately can't see it ever happening where everyone does get paid. I think there's probably always going to be someone who's owed money by 1PW because that's just the kind of company 1PW are. And with all that being said, my final message is that when 1PW inevitably returns in some time in the next 10 years, don't fall for it again and don't take the booking from them. I beg.